Good evening, friends, and welcome to a late-night edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the drill. We're retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when we go live or upload another video. Tonight, I'm outraged because yesterday at about 9:30 in the morning up in Onondaga County, DA Fitzpatrick offered the 6 former correction officers plea deals of 18 years for the brutal beating and murder of Robert Brooks. I mean, I would have went live last night, but I had a whole bunch of things on my plate, but I had to let a day sink in so I wasn't so angry. But I got to get your take on this, friends. The Crime Time with DutyRon community and Ed Wallace, we've been covering this strongly. These scumbags deserve the fullest extent of the law. They were granted 70 days of freedom and then brought into court and then allowed to leave on a bullshit low cash bail. I don't know about you guys, but I'm mad as hell, and this is not justice. This is not justice at all. Let's listen to this little story here.
New tonight, 10 state corrections officers are now weighing plea deals for the charges they face in the December murder of inmate Robert Brooks. Good evening, I'm Matt Mulcahy. Megan is off tonight. The prison officers charged in the violent death of the Marcy inmate have plea deals to consider now. Onondaga County DA Bill Fitzpatrick, acting as the special prosecutor, offered deals to all 10 officers who stand accused of playing a role in Brooks's death. All 10 appeared in Oneida County Court today. All worked at Marcy State Prison where Brooks was killed. Body cameras that were turned off but still recording, to the surprise of officers, captured video of the violent attack. Brooks is being seen being punched, kicked, and restrained in those video while in handcuffs.
He's being seen while in handcuffs, being murdered. He was murdered on video, ladies and gentlemen. The mainstream media and the news reporters sugarcoat this shit. He was beaten right in front of us, beaten to death. And if it was you or I that committed this heinous crime, we would be hogtied, shackled, and locked down. No bail. I know the drill. We all know the drill. They can't lie to us. Let me put myself back on because I'm fucking pissed. They can't lie to us like this, because if it was me or you or anybody else, we would be locked down. We would be in jail awaiting trial. And because it's white correction officers upstate in bumfuck New York, they're allowed to walk out free. It's sickening. It's sickening on so many levels. And I apologize for the foul language, but I'm mad.
He died the next day. The I-Team's Connor White takes us inside.
He died that same day. Here's where the reporting goes wrong. They talk about he died the next day at 4 a.m. Robert Brooks was dead in that Marcy infirmary. We all saw it on video. This is where reporters, this is a local station up in upstate New York, is bullshit.
He died the next day. The I-Team's Connor White takes us inside the courtroom where the special prosecutor also hinted at a possible federal investigation.
On Monday, another routine step in a somewhat extraordinary case. All 10 officers accused in Robert Brooks's death coming publicly to the courtroom. It's something that former inmates and advocates will tell you is rare when it comes to cases of alleged abuse happening inside state prisons. And there are a lot of eyes on this, including now federal prosecutors. And at least one defense attorney came to the judge to complain about some of the comments being made outside the courtroom. Robert Brooks' son back in court Monday to see the state prison corrections officers accused of killing his father. The fatal encounter happening in December at Marcy Prison as Brooks was arriving from another prison in a seemingly routine transfer. The COs did not turn their body cameras on, but a default setting still recorded the attack. The gruesome video showing repeated kicks and punches to Brooks, who was handcuffed and restrained throughout. 6 of the men are now charged with murder. 3 are facing manslaughter charges for recklessly causing Brooks's death. and one faces a tampering with evidence charge.
And let me ask you this, and I hate to keep stopping it. What do you think the manslaughter charges are going to be reduced to? What are the plea deal for murder in the second degree is 18 years. What do you think these guys are going to get a slap on the wrist? This is the guy who cleaned up the blood. This is the former correctional officers that went in there with the little towel, like the towel boy, and cleaned up all of the evidence. He's going to get a slap on the wrist, time served, and walk free. And that's a travesty of justice, because you look at Robert Brooks Jr., you look at his son in court, and my heart breaks for this young man, because he has to sit here and watch this travesty of justice unfold right before his very eyes. And Reverend Robert Brooks' father, is a good man, and he too has to see this happening. And those, my friends, are the victims that are left behind. It's just sickening. I'm gonna stop this because I want to play the actual video that shows and tells us about this 18-year plea deal. So I'm gonna play this, and then I got a special guest who's going to join us. Conservative Felon was good enough to. I sent him a text message at like 9:30, and he was like, "I'm up for it. Let's do this. Let's do it, DutyRon." So Conservative Felon, shout out to you. Thank you for being here. He's going to join us in a few to give his take on this.
The attorney defending now resigned correction officer Anthony Farina isn't impressed with the offer made by the special prosecutor, Onondaga County District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick. The lawyer tells News Channel 9, quote, being asked to plead guilty to the top charge with an 18-year sentence.
There it is. The prosecutor, the special prosecutor right here, is asking them to plead guilty to the top charge with an 18-year sentence recommendation. It's not a plea deal. This is the attorney that represents, I believe, Anthony Farina. This is despicable, man.
Recommendation is not a plea deal. It's essentially the same outcome we might face if we went to trial and lost.
Not true.
Farina, charged with murder and manslaughter, is one of the 10 officers who appeared before a judge.
Take a look at these 10 officers. Okay, 6 out of these 10, and I'll mention their names right here. Nicholas Anzalone, murder second degree. Originally, before this plea deal, faced 25 to life, was released on a $10,000 bail, $100,000 cash bail, $10,000 out of his pocket. Anthony Farina, again, 44, murder in the second degree. David Kingsley, murder in the second degree. Christopher Walrath, who did not make court, murder second degree. Matthew Gallagher, murder in second degree. And Nicholas Kiefer. So this is bullshit 101. This is what you got upstate New York. And look, not a lot of YouTube suppresses these videos. They don't want people to see it. They don't want people to talk about it. But guess what? I'm going to talk about it.
Judge, each given until April. Murder and manslaughter is one of the 10 officers who appeared before a judge, each given until April to either accept or reject an individualized plea agreement, the details of each not openly shared. 6 of the officers are accused of murder. The other 4 face lesser charges for their role in the brutal beating of inmate Robert Brooks at the Marcy Correctional Facility in December. Their conduct caught on uniform cameras. To make his offer more attractive to defendants, DA Bill Fitzpatrick has asked federal prosecutors to satisfy any pending federal charges against the officers with his deal. If the defendants reject the offers in the weeks ahead, a schedule is already set for pretrial hearings. In Syracuse, Andrew Donovan.
So there you have it, folks. Really shocking. I mean, this came in last night, but joining us live, Conservative Felon. He knows the New York State Corrections Department because he served a sentence in the Department of Corrections. He talks about it on his YouTube channel. I'm going to share it in the description. But I want to thank you, Conservative Felon. Thank you for joining our show here tonight. As you can see, these guys are being offered a sweet plea deal 18 years for murder, second degree. Granted, the feds, they talked about the feds wanting to take over, but what if the feds don't go and charge them? And now they'll be looking at this. I want to just get your thoughts, conservative felon, on this situation.
First of all, thank you for having me, Ron. I appreciate it. And always willing to talk about this case. So I was incarcerated. I was charged with murder in the second degree in my case as well. And I was offered a plea deal of manslaughter in the first degree. And I received the maximum sentence for that charge, which was 12 and a half to 25 years. So let me tell you my concerns with this plea deal that they have right here. First, the first thing that you brought up about the feds picking up the charge. As I told you from the beginning, if you can't get a lawyer that knows the law, get one that knows the judge. That's an old saying, you know. And you know, this is a small upstate town, as you pointed out, and I worried about that from the very beginning. I worried about District Attorney Fitzpatrick being very pro law enforcement from his past decisions. From his refusal to prosecute someone in the DA's office who killed someone driving drunk. You know, he's just has a track record of not doing the right thing. And so let's get to the sentence. If 18 years, right? What we have to be a little nervous is this is the first offer that was made. That doesn't mean that if they don't accept that offer, that another offer even lower could be made. Okay, that's possible now. You know, just because a district attorney gives you an offer of 18 years, if the lawyers say, listen, we don't accept that offer, the district attorney can come back with a lower offer, right? And so the charge of murder in the second degree carries 25 to life, right? So when they pointed out in that statement that to the top charge, 18 years to the top charge, they're facing 25 to life. So it's if they get 18 years, let's say they accepted 18 years, what the conditional release date, which means the most they can serve on an 18-year sentence, is 15 years, 4 months. Okay, it's 85% of the number, right? That's the most they can serve on 18 years is 15 years, 4 months. And then when you go into prison, they have a program that can take off 6 months, another program that can take off 1 year, you know, and there's different, you know, there's so many laws that they'll try and take advantage of to cut the time down to even 12 years. That's possible. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you, and I don't mean to cut you off, but no. Being that these are correction officers, is it assumed that they will be afforded all of those types of programs that you talk about to lower the amount of time that they serve from behind bars?
Of course they'll be, because anyone incarcerated, especially with the liberal system right now, anyone incarcerated, I mean, they're trying to make laws right now. And Kathy Hochul is changing law right now to release men from prison. This is the agenda of the liberal New York State criminal justice system, is to try and get as many people out of the system as they can. Right? If you're in the truth is, if you're in a Republican state, the Republican states are tougher on crime, and the Democratic states are lenient on crime. Right? So now you're talking a Democratic state with a Democratic governor with law enforcement involved, and you know, so yeah, it is very possible they could do less than the 15 years. Let me say this, right? It is common for them to offer a plea deal, right? In most cases, when guys are charged with murder, whether they're law enforcement or not, they get a plea deal. You know what I mean? And so that is common, right? But in this case, a high-profile media case where it's caught on camera and it was so vicious, and these were supposed to be people in authority to uphold the law, and you know that plea deal really isn't warranted. I mean, if you take them to trial, I don't see how they could beat the trial with video camera evidence. That's why the plea deal is you know, unfortunate.
Here's the thing, Joe, and I agree to some extent with that. But at the same time, like you said, the high profile and the actual the shocking nature of what they did and the way it appeared to be routine. And now we're hearing more and more stories are coming out from inmates that are screaming from the rooftops that, hey, I was beaten. I was almost beaten to death. I was assaulted by correctional officers. Now all of a sudden we're hearing more and more about this stuff. And as I started covering this, people were reaching out to me in droves. My son is incarcerated. My husband's incarcerated. He's being beaten. He's being deprived of the general, everyday life necessities. And it almost sounded like unbelievable, but now it's just, for me, it's so believable. But here's the thing. If the feds truly are going to take this case and charge some, civil rights violations or charge them from, it's up in Rochester, they said, the Rochester office of the feds are handling it, because I think the Eastern District closer down towards New York, they refuse to take it. Yeah, I have a clip of that where a reporter talks about it. But if the feds take over, then when you get charged federally and there is a sentence imposed, you do most of that time. It's not like state, right, Joe? Could you talk a little bit about that, conservative felon?
I'm not exactly sure on how much time you have to do on the federal sentence. So I don't want to.
I know people spend it all. I know,
right,
because I dealt with the feds.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't want to speculate on that. Yeah. My other concern that you pointed out, Ron, is the fact that 3 of the officers were charged with manslaughter in the second degree. They weren't charged with murder. After manslaughter in the second degree is assault, right? Yeah. So when you pointed out that they can literally be placed on time served, or receive a sentence of something like 2 years, that's very possible that the 3 officers that were charged with manslaughter in the second could plea bargain down to assault charges and not have to do any time at all. If they were to receive 18 years, and in my personal opinion, I said, would I be satisfied with them doing 18 years? Of course, I'd like them to get 25 years. All right. I'd like them to get 25. They're facing life in prison, right? But I didn't expect them to get life because, as we keep pointing out, this is an upstate town. They're white correctional officers, and they have this small courthouse. I knew from the very beginning these guys weren't getting life. I knew that for sure. I was so my worry is that they'll even drop the offer a little more. That these lawyers will not take the 18-year offer, and maybe they make them a plea bargain of 15 years. They ask them to cop out to 15 years.
Really good point, Joe. Because when I played the very first piece, the lawyers that were representing one or more of these defendants said that they were not happy with that deal. It was just like, we might as well just take it to trial. But they're just talking out their ass. You can't. There is no defense for someone caught on video. This guy that I have up here, we saw him, kicking and punching and choking and stuffing rags and towels or whatever it was. Yeah. And they were stuffing it to Robert Brooks' mouth. I mean, these guys were brutally on video, beating him to death. They beat the life out of this guy. And the shame of it all is that his family, I always talk about the victims and their families, and the families who are left behind to watch this go on in the courtroom. That's really who my heart breaks for. And for society and as a whole, we look at this stuff and we just say to ourselves, how could this happen? How could they do this? If they don't make this right, if these guys do not do what any other human being would do charged with this type of crime, and amplify it because they were in authority and command. They're supposed to be maintaining safe and secure environment for inmates, not to murder them. And this seemed like it was just status quo, business as usual. There was nothing unusual about this for them. For us, we were all like looking at this. You, because you served time, you probably weren't too surprised by what you saw inside Marcy Correctional, Joe, were you?
I pointed out to you, if you remember, Ron, when we discussed the Robert Brooks case, you asked me what the percentage was of correctional officers that conduct themselves in the intimidation, violent, factor and beat inmates up. And you said maybe 20%. And I said, Ron, I think it's 50%. And you seem stunned by that. I says, I think it's 50-50, and it is a common practice that they rule by intimidation. They rule, you can't speak back to an officer without being beat, and you can't look at an officer the wrong way without being beat. I'm not talking about being reprimanded. I'm not talking about receiving a misbehavior report. I'm talking about if you look at them the wrong way, their response is violence, right? And this is the importance of the body cameras that, I have to say I'm not a huge Kathy Hochul fan in a lot of areas, but she just approved $14.8 million for body-worn cameras and another $400 million for cameras in all the correctional facilities. The correctional officers constantly say that we're having feces thrown on us, we're being attacked by prisoners, we're being assaulted by prisoners. And if that is true, of course, in some cases it is true, but if that is true, then you would want to wear a body camera to justify these claims that you're making. Mm-hmm. And I'll end with this. I served 17 years straight. Okay. And in my 17 years, I'm not going to say that I have never seen a prisoner attack an officer. I have seen prisoners attack an officer, but I'll tell you what I've never seen. I'm not justifying it. I've never seen a prisoner in 17 years of prison attack an officer for no reason. I've seen prisoners attack an officer because they were being abused, because they were being denied the few rights that they had, because they were either being verbally abused, pushed into a corner where the prisoner felt like he had no response but to go after the officer because he was done wrong by the officer. In other words, the officer instigated the incident. I'm not saying that all the time. Right. I'm sure, because there's some bad people in prison too. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're angels, but I'm saying what I personally witnessed. Right. The only time I've seen it, and 17 years is a long time. Right. I was in Attica, I was in Sing Sing, I was in serious maximum security prisons. And the only time I saw a prisoner attack an officer is when he had it coming to him, is when he was something wrong. Right? Because, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, I 100%, appreciate that, your perspective, because that's from what your personal experience was. And like you said, I'm sure that there's been some unprovoked attacks. It happens. There are violent people inside. But look, Governor Hochul at this point has to try to save egg. She has egg on her face. So she's got to try to save face. And by her instituting these body cams and more cameras in facilities, she's a little late, in my opinion. This shit should have been done when that report was done in 2021 by CANA. I think it was CANY.
CANA, yes.
New York. When that freaking report came out, she should have got the wheels going, not waiting until Robert Brooks happened.
Right. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We're getting very, very limited information on the beating death of Messiah Natwi that happened in Mid-State Correctional Facility. I served time in Mid-State. I was in Mid-State for a few years. And so that they're so far claiming that there's no body camera footage, but there's 9 witnesses that this prisoner was beat to death by correctional officers, by about 11 of them. So those officers have since been suspended, and removed, but we're not getting real details. There's been quite a few beating deaths since this Robert Brooks case. There's been quite a few of them.
Right. And a lot of people in the chat are saying, the system's flawed. This system has never been and it never will be perfect, because what people fail to realize is that being incarcerated in a large prison environment is not an easy operation to control. And like you talked about many times, I heard you on your channel, and I encourage people to go over and subscribe to your channel, because you give the perspective from someone who was there and walk the walk. You walk the walk and talk the talk, and I appreciate that. But what happens is the steps that correctional officers have to take to get people to comply isn't most people's opinion that are outside in the free world that aren't incarcerated, barbaric, because, you know, locking somebody down, depriving them of basic necessities and stuff and things of that nature, that turns people into different kind of people, right? Am I saying this right?
If you're speaking about like the solitary confinement, you know, aspect of, you know, which is a different topic, but a little, you know, similar related. You know, solitary confinement, you have to have it in prison. Okay, you have to have it. You know, you can't allow prisoners to run around stabbing people. You can't allow prisoners to run around cutting people, you know, and not be able to place them in solitary confinement. You'll have complete chaos. But my issue is the way that they use solitary confinement is a form of torture. And what I mean by that is, if somebody, I'm just going to give a quick hypothetical, you know, well, it's not a hypothetical, it happens every day in there. If a prisoner stabs another prisoner, what you have to do is remove that prisoner from the general population. If you remove him from the general population and put him in solitary confinement, then everybody is safe from that prisoner now. Okay. But when you put him in a room and you leave the light on 24 hours a day, and you don't feed him properly, and you don't let him get proper sleep, and you keep the room freezing, it becomes a form of torture, right? The idea of solitary is to remove the threat, not torture the person once you have him in the room. The military uses light deprivation to torture people, you know, and right, they leave. So I went into solitary, you know, a couple of times. And I went into solitary unjustly in my case. They didn't need to put me in solitary. An officer lied in the disciplinary hearing. They put me in solitary. And I was very close to suicide in solitary confinement, Ron. I came really, really close to ending my life. It was the hardest thing I ever had to go through in my life. You know, I was panicking. I was screaming. I was, you know, pulling my hair out of my head. And it was a very scary situation. I was just felt like I was going to have a heart attack. And the officers would come by and tell me, if you open your mouth again, we're going to come in there and beat the hell out of you. You know? Yeah. And that was it. They literally came to the door. They said, if we hear another word out of you, and I told them, I says, I'm going to kill myself. You got to get me out of here. I can't take it in here. You know, it was just an empty room, you know, and so they need to definitely work on the way to use solitary confinement. You have to have it, as I said, but it can't be torture. And they really do use it as torture. They put nonviolent people in it.
Absolutely. Hey, Joe, I want to play this because, and I'm not playing it at all. Again, here, I'll put out the, if anybody suffers from PTSD or anything, I think it's important in this video because I want to kind of close this up because I want to show the brutal nature of what was done to Robert Brooks on video, because I know most of us have seen it and I know it's triggering, but I think it's important for the public to see this and people who watch the replay on this video, exactly what Anthony Farina, Nicholas Anzalone, David Kingsley, Walrath, all of these 6 scumbags that are charged. And I think that all of these, this sergeant here got off easy. Both
Matthew Gallagher.
Easy. As a matter of fact, one of them didn't even get charged. So, like, what is that? And I want to show this because I think it's important for the general public to see what's happening up in Onondaga County and what DA Fitzpatrick is doing here. And if the feds don't take this thing over and fully charge these guys, there's going to be civil unrest. I can guarantee it. I'm not saying to go out and do civil unrest, but the community is not going to be happy with this. And the summer is coming. The weather's getting warmer up there. I really do not think that this will sit well with anybody, and rightfully shouldn't. It shouldn't sit well. And I always encourage people to protest peacefully and not to go out and do anything criminal. But this will cause community unrest. It's a guarantee if they don't do the right thing. But here it is. This is from our good friend JB Nicholas, the freelance independent news. He's been on with us a couple of times, and I really appreciate JB's perspective. But this is from his channel, and he narrates this video again, if you suffer from PTSD or this type of stuff is troubling to you, don't watch it. But this is the body cam footage that was released by Attorney General Tisha James.
24. 4 of them with the body on cameras. They didn't activate the cameras, but they were powered on.
Is anybody getting the video? The audio cutting in and out like I'm.
Yes, yeah.
You're getting that. So let me just try to do something. Let me just try to remove it completely. Stop screen. I don't know why that was happening. It was happening when you were talking too. But I want to try to re-add it, and maybe it'll fix it. Let's see. The StreamYard sometimes is touchy. It's like if you do something too much, it gets a little wonky. All right,
offer it a plea deal.
Yeah. All right, let's see what happens. I'll try it again. Still doing it.
Was not.
I don't know why that's happening. All right, I'll play it without his narration. Let's just look at it. That's really what I want people to see, is what exactly is happening. I'd love to let everybody listen to JB, but this is inside the infirmary. So there you see, these 3 are charged with murder in the 2nd degree. That's Anzalone, I believe Walrath, and Gallagher.
I'm JB. As he gets into it's called a Theo Brooks. He turns.
All right, so this is a different angle, and it shows these two. And how about that? Like, I want to talk with you about these 2 nurses here and how they skated from anything. No, I didn't even hear about their license being pulled or anything.
Right.
So these 2 basically just, again, may have cooperated. There's other COs that may have cooperated. You know how that happens, conservative felon. When you're facing extreme charges, all of a sudden everybody wants to roll and everybody wants to cooperate to get a deal. I believe that these 2 cooperated and said, look, if we would have did anything that they didn't tell us, they might have beaten us. Yeah. I mean, I don't see that as far-fetched.
No, from the very beginning, they stated that they had a cooperating witness, and when murder is involved, and those detectives, you were a detective, those detectives get you in the room and say, listen, we're talking life or death in prison right now. You better open your mouth. They start talking.
Yeah.
But I think it was 3 nurses that they ended up letting go. You might be right. It was 2, but no charges whatsoever,
Yeah. So it's unbelievable. As we you see knees on him, people throwing punches. You see just a ton of this is a death that we're watching unfold before our eyes here.
It's a murder. It's a murder.
Wow.
It's not. Yeah.
They murdered him.
It's a murder. It's not manslaughter. It's a murder.
Yeah. And the sickening part is the 2 supervisors that were inside that room watching what was going on. Again, they weren't partaking in the actual beating themselves, but they're responsible to supervise these guys and say, hey, guys, what's going on here? It's a travesty of justice in my eyes, and I promise that we would continue to follow this as it unfolds. And I got the dates right here. For those of you who are going to be following it, the next court date for some of these guys is April 15th at 9:30 a.m. Then the judge went on to say April 29th for one of the defendants. And then there was going to be a final hearing on May 20th to decide whether they are going. He gave them, I think, till the end of the month, the 29th or May 13th to accept the plea deal. And if they didn't accept the plea deal, then he wants to move forward with a final hearing for trial. We got to see what happens here. It's a bunch of bullshit, and for me, it's if I would have went live last night with it, I would have just been screaming and yelling. So I took a day to kind of like relax and let it settle in. I want to go to the chat, if you don't mind, Conservative Felon, because there's a lot of people that have questions.
Well, yeah.
Thank you for gifting a membership. Nicole, thank you for the being a member for 2 months. She says, I just want to know why. Justice for Robert Brooks. Yeah. Why did they do this? And why was it so, it looked like another day. Look, this guy's got his hand, the sergeant has his hand inside his pants, like hanging out. Like, yeah. Right.
That's a very good question, and I was just gonna say, Ron, that right before that you read that comment, I was gonna say I want you to notice how relaxed everybody is in the room. Okay, when there's something violent taking place, people are moving around. They're on edge. They can't. There's chaos. There's none of that. This is. They were so relaxed because they've done it so many times that it was second nature to them. It was second nature to them.
Yeah, it's sickening. I'm going to try to remove you, Joe, and then pop you back in. So I'm going to completely remove you and then just come back in with that link, and maybe
no problem.
Fix itself, because I'm hearing every other word that you're saying. So I just kicked Joe from the studio. He's going to come back in and join us. Hopefully my audio is not cutting in and out like that, but that's what happens on these late night live streams. So yeah, I wanted to come live with this. It's late. I didn't plan this. I just said, let's do it. Let's just wing it. Ferris, thank you for being here. Joey Brooklyn, thank you for being here. Shining Light says it's sad. The plea deal is 18 years to plead to the top charge of murder in the second degree, which holds a 25-year to life sentence. To me, it's just a slap in the face to the families. Let me see, Joe, talk.
Well, hopefully I'm coming through clear now.
Still doing it. I don't know why, and I'm hoping that the audience is not getting it, because I didn't see anybody say it on the audience that it was breaking up. But like, I'm catching every other word that you're saying, and it's like I really want to hear everything that you're doing.
I'm gonna try putting in some earphones.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening, and it's probably on my end. It might be my stream deck. I don't know. Thank you, Joey Brooklyn here. Yeah, so people are like saying, "Oh, it's complicated. Police killed a man in their custody." I think that if this was a police officer out on the street beating someone, and we've seen this, George Floyd, we've seen it in Kentucky, we've seen it a lot of different times in North Carolina, a couple of times, man being beaten or shot on video. These officers are all in prison. These guys were they were free for 70 freaking days, Conservative Felon, 70 days. That was an outrage. That was something that I almost couldn't believe it was happening before my eyes. Look, you got a completely different story with Luigi Mangione, but that kid was locked up, that young man locked up. He's a murderer. He killed, on video, CEO of United Healthcare. But he's without bail and locked up, and rightfully so. These guys right here, they should be locked up without bail. But like you said, there's New York.
I had pointed out. Everyone else says they hear the audio good, Ron. So that's a good thing. What I pointed out about the bail is when a $30,000 bail was offered, and District Attorney Fitzpatrick, didn't argue that bail at all. Obviously, there was an agreement to let them go on a very low bail. When you have a murder case, the bail is usually in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. If there's bail at all. In many murder cases, there is no bail. They find reasons not to give you bail. But a bail would typically be $250,000, $400,000 for a murder charge. It's the most serious charge that you can get in the world, is murder. And 30,000 was a travesty. There's no way they should have been able to walk around. It was terrible.
Anywhere else, and it doesn't matter where it is, you would not see something like this happen. And I don't think in all of my time, and I've been around law enforcement in the courts for over 30 years, I've never seen something like this happen. Obviously, we've never seen it, corrections officers on body cam footage murdering somebody. But when you have such concrete evidence like this, it's just so frustrating to see these guys walking free amongst us. And we had Long Island Audit go out to Anthony Farina's home, and I played the crap out of that, where his son was like, "Oh, my father didn't kill anybody. That happened over at what did
Mohawk.
he say? At Midstate, or what,
Mohawk, yeah.
Yeah, Mohawk. I mean, yeah. So like, and he said it so confidently, conservative felon. It was like he was being fed that by his own father. So shame on this guy for letting his son think, oh yeah, son, we didn't do that. Whatever you saw there on body cam footage, because who didn't see that? The kid had to. It was all over the place. You couldn't open up TikTok, YouTube. It was on X. It was on every platform. That video was all over the place. It got like 10 gazillion views. So it's just sad. I want to thank everybody for being here. Especially, I want to thank Conservative Felon for giving us time. And I'm sorry about the audio issues. It's probably on my end. I don't know what's going on with the Stream Deck. I'll try to update it. But Conservative Felon's got his own YouTube channel. I hope you guys go over and check it out. I'll link it in the description.
Thank you. Thank you.
Critical Conversations HR has been covering the crap out of this thing too. He's been doing interviews with people. So if you're not checking out his channel, Critical Conversations, right there, thank you for the super chat. He has been going live and uploading videos constantly on this, and I go to him to look at some of the coverage from somebody outside of the media, because he's interviewing people that have loved ones incarcerated and so forth. So I want to thank Critical Conversations for the work that he does. And I encourage everyone to share the love and subscribe to all of these YouTube channels who are trying to bring this to light and keep it out there. Look, we have almost 500,000 subscribers, and look at what YouTube does. They throttle the crap out of this because they don't like to hear the truth.
Yeah,
and it's a shame. But it is what it is. You got to keep on pushing forward. And I made a promise to everybody that we would cover this thing, and I'm going to cover it right to the very end to see what happens to these scumbags. They need to be locked down. They need to do prison time. And again, Conservative Felon, I can't thank you enough for on the last second just saying, "Hey, I'm up at the computer. Let's rock it. Let's do it."
Anytime, Ron. Anytime. I appreciate you having me. Call me
Thank
at 1 in the morning. We'll do it.
On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, I want to thank everybody for being here, all the replay viewers, the super chatters. You guys are what makes this a great place. We appreciate you. I got some coverage coming tomorrow night on Lori Shallow Vallow. She's going on trial for murdering her husband in Maricopa County in Arizona. Charles Vallow, justice for him. We're going to cover that. I'll talk to you guys all soon. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you soon.